I don't remember most of the ideas I came up with at the time, but I do remember feeling like I don't know how to describe it, but I had this like second time founder syndrome where I would kill every idea in my mind before I pursued it in any meaningful way, because I had now known, I ran a company for 8 years, and I like the first time around when you start a company, people tell you it's an 8 to 10 year journey. And you're like, I don't know what that means. I just spent 8 years in high school and grad school, and that was fine. But the second time around, you really know what that means. And so every idea I would come up with, I would immediately be like, oh, do I want to spend 8 years on it? And I think that is completely the wrong mental model. And I recognize that as well, that it was the wrong mental model. Even then, I just couldn't help it. The right mental model is just like, go work on stuff, work on some projects, make toys, and see where some of those things go. But I was still, I think, maybe suffering burnout or something else. And I was just like, every idea, I was just like, nope, can't do this, and nope, can't do that. And that's actually why I ended up starting Wayfinder, because to me, it just felt like a way. It wasn't like this intentional thing of, oh, I'll go and become a VC. It was more like, oh, I'll just continue spending time with founders on my schedule until maybe I come up with something better. And now it's like 4 years later, and this is, I think, the something better. But at the time, it wasn't like super obvious to me.
It's grown organically because you were also making a lot of angel investments, right? When you were visiting partner at YC, and just obviously spending a lot of your time advising startups.
Yeah. So even that, I mean, when you get to the Bay Area, and especially when I got to YC, you realize that, oh, you don't need permission to be an angel investor. You could just write somebody a $5,000 check. Right. And that realization took me much, much longer than it should have. I probably should have realized it when Reynolds was starting Databricks or when right. Ben was doing Pinterest. But thankfully, by the time I was working at YC, I met Ryan from Flexboard. He was literally the first founder I'd ever done office hours with. And you meet him and you realize like what a great founder like truly looks like. And it was just so obvious from that first meeting that he was going to build something great, that I knew from like that moment that I wanted to give him money. I didn't know how, I didn't know what was allowed, but I just knew I wanted to give him money. And that was my introduction.
This is actually really, really interesting. I never thought about how, people would not understand how easy it is to just make an investment. I mean, obviously there's some securities laws, but for the most part, yeah. Like, what's stopping you from just writing a check and supporting a startup founder?
I think it's just realizing that you just ask, right? And it's not like it took me that long, right? Like I started working at YC part-time in 2014. So I've only been in the Bay Area for like 3 or 4 years, but it certainly is not something that I would have ever thought of living in Toronto. Right. I think it's something that you realize when you live here. And by the time that I was at YC, I think I was seeing so many more people angel investing that I realized that, oh, this is something that I can actually do. And so Ryan was the first one I ever invested in. And then I invested in Eric's company. Yeah. Then I did Pebble. And then from there, I just, I started getting introduced to some LPs that would give me these like tiny funds. They would give me like $250,000 funds, and I would write like $25,000, $50,000 checks into companies. And really? I never thought of myself. Yeah. Like I didn't have that much money, but for me, this was like a great way to invest in companies.